For as long as human beings have been able to imagine things that they cannot directly see or experience, they have populated their universe with stories of otherworldly beings. Angels, demons, gods, and monsters, filling both the underworld and the heavens with vast pantheons of intelligent life. However, it was with the scientific revolution of the Age of Enlightenment and advances in astronomy in the 19th century that this predisposition for imagining life beyond our own world began to move away from the mythological and towards the speculative. In the middle of this cultural shift, Mars presented itself as an ideal focal point, by way of being close enough to see properly, and having an atmosphere thin enough to see through. In 1877, the astronomer Giovanni Schiaparelli carried out the first detailed observations of Mars. Of particular interest, he noted that the surface of the planet was crisscrossed with canals, which were theorized to be vast shipping lanes used by a Martian civilization to transport water from the poles, eking out the lifespan of their dying world. Apart from that, he didn't say this at all. What he had seen was a network of canyons, which he called channels. Unfortunately, the Italian word for channel was canali, which nobody in the English-speaking world bothered to translate properly until long after people's imaginations had run utterly wild. H.G. Wells secured his success as one of the great science fiction writers by having Martian invaders sweep away the British Empire in 1898, and in the 1920s, Edgar Rice Burroughs filled the Red Planet with multitudes of warring races of Martians, always ready to buckle some swash aboard an airship with their ray gun and sword. Even though the first scientific analysis into Mars's unsuitability as a host for life was published before 1910, the idea would not shift. As late as the 1950s and 60s, the idea that Mars might play host to intelligent life held sway in the public consciousness, Mars being a favoured source of invaders in countless works of high-concept, low-budget fiction. Gradually, though, popular consciousness did allow scientific skepticism in. Maybe Mars wasn't the home of a great spacefaring civilization. Maybe the Martians were no more advanced than we were. Or they could be less advanced. Even now, cave Martians could be banging rocks together to discover fire. Or perhaps Mars was home to nothing more advanced than animal life. Or just plant life, even. Mosses and lichens, to be specific. Or, rather, a kind of primordial sludge. Microbes, really. A few microbes. One or two. Here and there. With each blow from astronomers and astrobiologists, the human race collectively dialed its expectations back another notch, until in 1976, almost 100 years since that first mistranslation, the question would be settled by the tests carried out by the Viking landers. Unfortunately, the probe's answer turned out to be maybe, but probably not. The issue being that the labelled gas test that the probes were configured to carry out consistently said yes. However, every other test in their huge array consistently said no. 20 years later, in 1996, a Martian meteorite fragment was discovered to contain a microscopic structure that might indicate that microbial life had existed there at some point in the distant past. The search for microbes turned into the search for the remains of long-dead prehistoric microbes, and the human race dialed its expectations back yet another notch. And yet, in 2025, the Perseverance rover discovered a rock bearing particular surface mineral deposits, little ring-like spots, a discoloration most associated with microbial metabolism. Listed as a potential biosignature, these spots will either herald Mars as having once borne life, or that current understanding of Martian geology needs to be severely updated. At this point, expectations are so low in public perception that this news came and went almost without fanfare outside of the scientific community. But the search continues, and for now, the answer to the question of whether there was ever life on Mars remains definitively that there either was or wasn't.